Hello, everyone, and welcome to the July Exchange.js Meetup. Because of circumstances obviously beyond all of our control, we are again online. Normally at this time we'd be having our wonderful lightning talks, but we've had to evolve those with the evolution of basically everything else. So we have a series of amazing talks from you, from some serverless stuff to some WebAssembly. There's some really cool stuff in here, as well as a few first-time presenters, which it's always amazing to see. Always great to see people coming out, supporting the community, and really making this the awesome place that we all know it is. But I got some slides right over here that I will run through, and I promise you'll be seeing only the bare minimum of me, which is I know how all of you like to keep it. So let's get through these slides and on to the meat of the actual evening. If I could find my presenter window, just a quick agenda. We have a code of conduct, followed by a little bit of news, and then some talks. As always, by attending this talk, even virtually, you agree to our code of conduct, which you can find in the Slack by simply mentioning code of conduct, or I believe it's on our website as well. If I had to sum up the code of conduct, it would basically be to be kind, be patient, be awesome. In these days of the Bill and Ted reboot, be excellent to each other. I can see also that Mark has posted the code of conduct in the YouTube chat, so you can see it over there. My directions are always screwed up here. As well, normally when we have in-person meetups, we'll have people wearing name tags that will have their name on it, and they'll also have a couple of different stickers on it. The most important sticker is probably the yellow one, which is for new time, new people here for the first time. It shows that someone is willing to talk. It's sometimes very scary to come to one of these meetups as someone who's maybe not familiar with Dev Edmonton or is maybe a new developer. So in the absence of these yellow items, I'll just say that you can always come talk to anyone who's wearing one of these stickers, and you can talk to us about anything. I'm always wearing one of these. I'm easy to approach. You can find me on Slack. You can ask me anything, and that is my actual work email address over there. So you can email me with whatever questions you want related to development or JavaScript, and I'll try and answer them as best I can. In addition, I'm sure that if you have a question in the chat, that someone will come and help you out with that as well. It might even be me. Just as a reminder, the slide normally says you might be on YouTube, but if you are watching me, you are on YouTube currently. So if you are a presenter, this talk will be made available on YouTube, and obviously try not to get our channel banned by posting or commenting anything that's bad or anything like that. In terms of news, we actually have a couple of big ones and then a couple of smaller ones, depending on how you lean towards linting. The big one is that Vue.js 3.0 is really coming down the pipe now. It's getting real close. The big addition there is probably the composition API. And that's going to make writing Vue apps a lot easier and a lot more powerful. In addition, Angular 10 was released last month, which is a big update for those of you that are still in kind of that Google mindset. Really big, really exciting. And then for smaller items, we have that Dart finally has a null safety operator, which the more kind of syntactical tools you can get in a language, the better. And then lastly, GitHub released its super linter. And as someone who loves clean code and good-looking composed code, I love anything linting related. So I'm definitely going to be checking that one out myself. As a reminder, if you are new to Dev Edmonton, we organize primarily on a Slack, which you can find by going to that link right there. And there's lots of meetups for a whole variety of other technologies, not just JavaScript. There's meetups for Python, meetups for Ruby, meetups for mobile, as well as there's a book club. There is a learning channel. There's a random channel, which is mostly GIFs, like all random channels across all Slacks. But there's a great way. It's a great place to get involved. And a fantastic place if you're new to ask questions, because there's lots of people who would love to help you out. Our next meetup is going to be roughly a month from now. We might evolve our format a little bit because July and August are typically our slowest months. We typically skip those. But given that everyone is kind of searching for something to do, we're thinking about maybe something social, unless someone has some really kind of crackerjack demos that they really want to get out there, or some really good talks they want to kind of pilot. As always, we're always looking for people to present. So again, it's my real email down there. So if you want to email me to talk about your talk, even just to like coach you through the process of it, figure out like what do we typically curate here. I kind of say most of the time that anything JavaScript or JavaScript adjacent is probably fine. So just send me an email, or that link to exchange.js.com/talks will take you to a Google document where you can kind of put your name in the running to do a talk. It's almost time for the main attraction. I don't know why we still have this slide, because I just went over that. But yeah, reach out on Slack if you want to talk more about demos. There's lots of people who have done a whole bunch of them, and there's plenty of people who are willing to help you along, whether it's your first demo or your 100th demo. So please reach out, because we always are looking for people. And with that being said, the first person that we have up is Eldar Abdullah, who is going to be giving us a demo of a project he built called honeymoney.io. And he'll be popping in to join me shortly.
Hey, I'm just going to jump in for a second here to surprise you. I'm going to be moderating the questions tonight to pass them on to Ian. So just to make my life easy, if you have questions, please just post a comment on YouTube and put the word question all in caps, because I'm blind and that makes my life easy. And then we'll post them up here so everyone can see. All right, I'll jump out, and Eldar, take over.
We should really have a slide for that. All right, Eldar, down there. Cool. Take it away.
Yeah, hello, everybody. My name is Eldar, and I wanted to give a small talk about my side project. It's called Honey Money, and I've been running it for almost a decade, for like 9 years. And the goal of my talk, I was hoping to inspire other people to start running side projects. Mostly not for financial reasons, but for all other benefits that you get from running your own pet projects. So my goal is to encourage you to do something on your own and to prove that it's doable. And with the state of technology that we have right now, it's kind of easy. I mean, you can be a single person and you can do something, and you can actually attract people, and people will start using it, and you can have a lot of benefits from this. So basically, I probably shouldn't switch here, right? So here's a small story. The Honey Money that you see here, this is not how it started. It all started in 2011. I moved to Canada in 2010, and I didn't have any job. I was a software developer back in Russia, but I mostly worked on PHP websites. And I decided to learn Ruby on Rails. So I did a couple tutorials. Then I started thinking, like, what's the best way to learn this new language, new framework, and everything new. except basic HTML and CSS, which is like all the same everywhere. So I did a couple tutorials, made my own blog in 5 minutes. If you watch the Ruby on Rails screencasts, and I did a Honey Money. So the very first version of Honey Money was a standard Ruby on Rails application with all the server-side rendering with a little bit of jQuery sprinkles of like some dynamic functionality. And it was in 2011, and it was in Russian. So to start, we should switch to the Russian version. It's on hmb.ru. I know it's in Russian. You don't understand what's going on here, but it all started in Russian. I only did the English version in 2017, I guess. Yeah. Russian version was launched in May 2011, and the English only in October 2017. And why I think that Honey Money has a place on the Exchange.js meetup, because right now in its current version, it's mostly a front-end application. I've been reworking Honey Money every several years, and if you have seen this meme, what is hot right now? Basically, this is the story of Honey Money. In 2011, it was Ruby on Rails. In 2012, I rewrote the whole system in Knockout.js. Then in a couple of years, I rewrote everything in Angular.js. And then in 3 years, I rewrote everything in Vue.js. So right now it's Vue 2.0, not 0.0, it's like the latest Vue.js version, but it's Vue.js. Next time, I think I will upgrade it to Vue.js 3 when it's ready. So my first point, why you should start a side project, because your own project, it's actually the best way to learn new technology. It all started with Ruby on Rails when I learned Knockout, Angular.js, Vue.js, and a lot of technologies that are in the same space. It's like Webpack and service workers and Cypress, so like mobile development. And mobile apps, it's like another story, but it's all related. If you have a pet project, you can actually do something that is much more interesting than creating another to-do app. And you actually see real-life problems, real-life tasks, and you can learn a lot of new stuff and pretty quickly. Each rewrite, it was a complete rewrite of the system. It was mostly front-end stuff here, but I also migrated from Postgres to MongoDB, then from MongoDB back to Postgres, and I also did a lot of experience on the backend stuff, but it doesn't have a nice meme like this for front-end frameworks. This is the first reason why you should start something on your own, because it's your own playground. You can actually learn how to use new cool technologies, because most of the time you won't have an opportunity to use them on your day job, because maybe there's something like shiny and new and you just attracted to it and you want to try it. So you can try it on your own project, because it's like nobody cares. Actually, like your users won't care how it's written, but you will care a lot. Yeah, this is my first version. The second, it gives you an additional meaning to your life. My project, it all started as I wanted to learn this new framework, Ruby on Rails, new to me. And then it actually changed, and like my relationship with this project changed, and I actually became very passionate about this field. 1 minute left. Okay. So yeah, let's you can improve your life, you can improve somebody else's life. Like, for example, I have like 300 or 400 people using my product. It can also bring you some financial benefits. You can use your project as your portfolio, samples of your codes. It can help you just with finding connections and networking. And it's just another journey in your life. You have an hour think. Sorry, I think I prepared to talk for 1 hour.
7 minutes is slightly less than 1 hour.
Sorry.
We have a question from the chat, though. From me, ironically. Did you ever regret one of your migrations, taking your entire site and moving it first from Knockout, then to Angular, then to Vue? Was any of them like more difficult, or were they all productive?
All the front-end stuff, it was really productive. I changed a lot on the front-end stuff with each migration, and it became much better with each one. On the backend stuff, when I migrated from, for example, Postgres to MongoDB, because it was so hot at that time, that I lived with it for a couple of years, or maybe 3 years, but I didn't get anything from it, except I just tried a new technology and it was beneficial in its own way. But end results, no, just knowledge and experience on the backend stuff.
Did the site say kind of similarly styled the whole way, or did you use the excuse of updating a framework to then update the styling of your website in a substantial manner?
Yeah, I updated the design a lot. I actually have screenshots, if we have time, of the old version.
I think we have a minute or two, yeah?
Yeah, the very first version.
Especially if we're going to get those good GeoCities style memories of something produced on the web maybe a decade ago.
Yeah, here's the very first version, like the logo I was choosing, and it looked like this. And from the very start, I decided that I will do something that will bring a lot of joy to me at the first place, because it was like, for me, I wanted to track finances in this tool myself, so it looked like this. And now it looks like this. So it's still all the B's, a lot of like B puns. Let's say
yeah, little graphics fidelity upgrade there.
Yeah, but it's like the very first and the latest version. I also had like a couple versions in between.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Eldar, for that kind of speech about how people should start up a side project, and a look back through the last decade of development at Honey Money, and the meme-filled look back at JavaScript in general, which I really appreciated. So,
yeah, I think I need to do a 1 hour talk, because like I prepared a lot of stuff, and then I just switched here. Oh, it's 1 minute left.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Again, Exchange.js.com/talks, which I'm sure Mark will put a link over there, which you'll be able to get to. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
that was just a trailer.
Yeah, thank you, Eldar.
Yeah.
Next up, I believe we have Casey talking about JSON feed. You're currently on mute, Casey.
I am unmuted. Okay.
Yes.
Here we go. That was actually a perfect lead-in, because I'm also going to talk about a side project of mine. I've been working on it for, I guess, a little over a year now. And it's here. You can find it at openfeed.caeidenberg.io. And of course, I only hack at it when I have time, and lately that hasn't been very much. So I just checked GitHub, and the last time I made a commit to master was March 1st. So you can tell that there have been some major changes in our lives and in the world since then. This is focused really on the open web and sort of the battle that's going on between protocols and platform social media right now. And if you take just one thing out of my talk, I think it's to read this article from Knight Columbia, which is on how we can sort of combat the web being centralized onto these very few platforms through open protocols, which are ways that content can be shared between lots of different servers or lots of different entities without tying everybody to one single platform or something like that. Of course, I don't really have time to go over all of the downsides that social media is having on our public discourse. I guess all I'll really say at this point is that I count myself among the people concerned about it and just want to inspire people to think a lot about the open web. So, of course, we've had open standards for sharing content between different websites for a long time. They're called RSS or Atom. The standards were formalized, I think, in the 90s, and a lot has changed since then, of course. But one of the things that really inspired me was this Json feed standard published by Manton Rees and Brent Simmons, I hope I'm getting that right, who proposed kind of taking the type of content that is in RSS and Atom and modernizing it a lot. And I think what's impressive about this spec is that not only does it move from XML to JSON, which is, hard to explain to the public, but as developers, you can see a huge benefit in why JSON is simply easier to work with, and hopefully this standard on its own can inspire people to build for the open web, but also that it really incorporates a lot of what we've learned, I think, about how people share content in the intervening years. So if you read over this specification, there's a lot here in surprisingly few fields. For example, images and banner images really capture the way that content, blog posts are shared on Medium, for example. And I think really in just a very few fields, you really have enough here to kind of represent a lot of the different ways that people are sharing stuff on the internet, whether it be Facebook, whether it be podcasts, whether it be blog posts, and the types of data that's currently contained in RSS. And so I sort of had this utopian vision of being able to take all of these different feeds that we all subscribe to, and using a set of converter services, pool them all into this standardized JSON feed format and be able to consume them all in one place. And then use some sort of algorithm which would also be open, and of course, since it's open, people could validate the code and make sure that it isn't biasing your reading habits in some specific way, or being used to collect data on you or fuel outrage. And you could choose what to read. But of course, that's a huge, this is really weird because my hands are going in the wrong direction, a sort of huge thing. And so where do you get started with something like this? Well, of course, the first thing you need is just a service that translates RSS and Atom into JSON feed, and then some sort of app which consumes content in that format. So that's more or less what I've been working on. If you take, for example, this is the RSS feed from CSS Tricks, which is a blog that I read quite a bit. And if you go to an API site on my on my app. It's completely open, so don't abuse it. I'll probably have to lock it down at some point, hopefully, if anybody ever starts using this. And what we can do is translate this XML, which is horrible and ugly to look at, into this nice JSON feed format. And it's just, you know, a summary of what feed you're looking at and the content in each post. And then on the front end of this, what I have is a simple React and TypeScript application that will consume data from the API. Another thing that I wanted this to be was this is an offline first application. You don't have to sign up to use this at all. You can take, here I'm just going to go to the website because instead of the feed, because this is how most people would do it. I can enter this data, it'll find their feed. I can add it, and then this is stored locally in my browser. So I can refresh the page and it's persistently stored until the next time that I come back. Their feed as well as any other feeds that I add. And I can also save individual posts for later. And again, these are just stored locally in your browser. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to give anybody your information. The only reason to sign up is to share data between different devices, which of course you might want to do, you know, search for content on your desktop and then read it on your phone later. So to do that, then you would sign up, and I'm just providing authentication right now rather than passwords. So if I go to sign up here through Twitter, it will redirect me back, and I'll get all of my feeds because these are things that I've saved in the past. And right now, these are just ordered by the time they were published. But one thing I would hope to do with this in the future is to create a bunch of different ways that the individual user could pick how they want to sort their content. So
cool.
Think
our time is up, Casey. That was 7 minutes.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. That's perfect. So two questions. Do you want to?
2 questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So first one's for me, obviously. Your site, the initial kind of landing page said posting. Can you post content as well from your client?
No, not yet. That was one of the things I was thinking, though, is that because this feed format really captures everything, that the JSON feed format really captures everything you would need for a blog. What I was thinking at some point in the future was you could actually use the app to create a feed that's detached from any individual website and sort of use it as a headless CMS. And
then let people kind of consume the JSON feed and display it however they wanted to.
So it would be sort of the full social media experience, from like reading your friends' posts as well as creating your own.
Cool. We have a second question from Mark asking, what are you using to do the offline first?
Yeah, so Mark probably saw my talk in the fall on PouchDB. So this uses Pouch, which I think works in pretty much every modern browser. It will save data in IndexedDB, and then it has a really nice syncing algorithm with the cloud. So it will, in the background, send your data to a Couch server and then download it onto other devices. And you can resolve conflicts and stuff like that.
Cool. Last question from Alien Room. What backend and front end are you currently using?
Yeah, the front end is written in TypeScript and React for the most part, and the back end is an Express server. The back end doesn't really have to do much because it's essentially just fronting the database and also providing that API endpoint. So it's a really simple Express server. Let me just Oh, my screen's not up anymore, right? But
Yeah.
the GitHub is linked from the application itself, so you can find it there.
Yeah, cool. I would be remiss if I didn't geek out over someone else using TypeScript. You should be using TypeScript. If you're not, it's really great. Next up, thank you for your talk, Casey. Wonderfully informative and thought-provoking as to the nature of social media. Next up, we have Andrew, who in a second is going to appear over there. There he is. And you're going to guide us through a website called 2md.ca, which is, I looked at it, it's a little developer kind of demo for Markdown. Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool.
So,
well, take it away.
Thanks. So I'm going to show today a program I wrote for dealing with Markdown called 2MD. So there's a lot of code and a lot of libraries for turning Markdown into HTML, but 2MD goes in the other direction. It turns your HTML into Markdown. So why might you want such a thing? Well, I'll show you one of my use cases. So when I'm programming, I'm often taking notes about the sort of stuff I'm doing, what I'm trying, and I often have to go and look something up, whether it's on Stack Overflow or an O'Reilly book or something like that. And I find some little bit of documentation or excerpt that explains what I need to do next. And so I'd like to save that in my notes so that I have a record of what I tried and I can refer back to it later. For a concrete example, one day I was working on something and I found that in order to get something to work, I'd have to change the startup parameters for some service. So I go and make a note and I say, hey, isn't there some sort of systemd override thing I can use here? And I go to the internet to try and answer my question. So I say systemd override, and I'll specify Arch because the Arch Linux wiki has a lot of really useful information. And okay, I don't know why that's not loading. Okay, here we are. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so in this particular case, there's a really useful excerpt here that says, hey, you can use these files. There's a systemcdl command to go and edit them for you. And it even has a warning that, by the way, if you try to change this particular thing, you can't do it this way. And so I'm like, hey, yeah, I want to try this. I want to make a record of it so that I know what I tried. And so what I used to do is come over here and then run this command to read from the paste buffer. And I get this plain text. And then it would be, oh, well, this is a quote, so let me make it a little bit markdown-ish. Let me go and add these quote markers. And, oh, no, that introduced some trailing white space. Oh, and then let me go and, okay. The streaming seems to be bogging down my computer a little bit. And OK. So I do this, and it would take a minute or two, a few times a day. And it's not hard, but it's tedious. And every time I do it, I think, I can probably write a program to take care of this for me. And that's what I did. So now it's much easier because instead of doing all that stuff by hand, I run 2MD. And on Mac, Linux, or Windows, it will read from the clipboard, and it will produce Markdown and write it to standard output. So it's really easy to put into a text file. And not only is it much faster and easier, but it's much higher quality. Here we preserved the code inside backticks, including the embedded italics. We have a heading, and the link's been preserved as well. So this is a tool I found really useful for myself. It's up on GitHub. Now, some of you might be thinking, hey, that's kind of cool, but I don't actually want to install anything on my computer. And that's totally understandable because I wrote this in JavaScript. It runs in your web browser as well. So if you go to 2md.ca and paste in your HTML, then you instantly get that same Markdown, and you can quote it if you'd like. And yeah, so same tool, no need to install anything. And if you're thinking, hey, that is kind of cool, how exactly does it work? It turns out that when you write code in JavaScript, it's fairly straightforward to wrap React components around all your internal data structures. And when you do that, you can have a web page with a bunch of visuals showing all the internals for your program. So if we go over to the developer demo and paste that same content in again, then we'll see all the internals of how the HTML turns into Markdown. We got the raw HTML, then we got the DOM, we got an intermediate representation that does things like drop this span inside the heading because it's not super relevant for Markdown, and then all the way over to Markdown. So the Lightning version of how this works is you turn HTML into Markdown by mapping the data through a series of data structures that are less and less HTML-like and more Markdown-like until you finally get Markdown in the end. For the non-Lightning explanation, there's a How It Works link. I wrote a detailed article that goes into, that elaborates on this quite a bit. And because of React and JavaScript right in the browser, we can paste in that same HTML. And then throughout the article, when I explain how something works and shows some code that like, hey, this is how this is built up. When it's showing, hey, this is a sample of what the data structure looks like, it is just reusing whatever you pasted in at the top. So that's the tool. That's my lightning talk. Thanks a lot, everyone. And at this point, I'm wondering if there are any questions. Oh, okay, I cannot hear you, unfortunately, but I see the question. Am I using anything to parse the Markdown?
I was muted. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Are you like, so why did you choose Markdown as kind of your end technology? Are you using any tools like Obsidian to do any sort of processing on the Markdown, or like what was the kind of the goal for capturing your notes in Markdown?
So just over the years from Stack Overflow and GitHub, just whenever I'm writing about code and writing blog posts or something, I'm just used to writing in Markdown. So my notes just naturally sort of became Markdown-ish so that they were easy to copy and paste and reuse in other things. So right now I'm not using it for anything specific, but yeah, it's just instead of making up my own formatting language when I'm making plain text notes, I use Markdown.
Cool. Well, thanks for the demo. I'm sure that people will take a look at that, especially if they have kind of interest in Markdown notes. Next up is Arun, and he is going to be taking us through some WebAssembly. And I believe you'll be seeing a little bit more of me because I think I will be playing against you, if that's correct.
Yeah. So, hi, my name is Arun. And this talk is about Rust and WebAssembly. So for those who maybe have not heard about Rust, it's a low-level systems programming language. It kind of feels like the newer C++, maybe. And this is a very low-effort meme I found. But yeah, it's basically a low-level language, and it prevents you from shooting yourself in the foot with memory errors like dereferencing a null pointer and stuff. But if you really want to, you absolutely can. So what I'm demoing today is a full stack application. So everything from the front end to the back end here is written in Rust. And this game allows you to play Connect 4 with a friend. So you'll see here that it says 404, but that's just because I'm using client-side routing and I haven't changed the status code. So I guess let's get right into a quick game here. Let's create. So I will share this code with. Oh, yeah.
Oh no, they can see our secret chat. I have the site open. It's fine.
Okay. Cool. So let me know when you have that open and ready to go.
How do I go to a specific game? Is there like a URL structure here, or?
Right, yeah. So to do that, you're going to click on Create Game. you're going to click online multiplayer. It's a very terrible UI. I designed it. Cool.
Submit room
Also
code.
credit where credit is due. This was a group project with two of my friends, Alex and Jacob. We're fourth, fifth year computer engineering students at the U of A. So this wasn't a solo undertaking. This was a group project. What do you see now?
I believe I'm the yellow player, if that's correct.
Aha, yes, I see your move. So now I can play, and we'll see your moves in real time. Yeah, cool. So
this is very cool. So what about WebAssembly made it, why did you choose WebAssembly specifically?
So the quick answer is that it was actually part of the school assignment, but all we had to do was port as much as we wanted to WebAssembly, but my group decided to just do everything. So yeah.
So so it was just, you didn't have like a specific reason for WebAssembly? It was part of your course then?
Yeah, so yeah, it was a course focused on exploring new technologies, and WebAssembly is one of those things. So like the course was mainly focused on Rust. So as the final thing, we ported a mean stack sort of code base into WebAssembly, and we had like a demo Connect 4 application that we just rewrote completely. So I guess we can peek into a little bit of the code here. Behind the scenes, like the code is in Rust, but we are interfacing with the HTML canvas. There's a library called Wasm bindgen, which allows you to use Rust to interact with the DOM. So that's kind of cool. Now, if anyone here is familiar with Rust, these lines of code here will make you a little uncomfortable with all of the unwraps. But I guess that's just the current state of it. As for how like the web page is displayed, is this it? Yeah. So this is kind of the architecture, or I guess the structure of displaying a web page is kind of similar to Elm or React, if anyone's familiar with that. So we have like our data here. We have a message which is passed when the page updates. And then we have the view function, which tells you how to render the data. And update will like do certain actions based on data changing. And you'll see that we are using code here that looks like HTML. What it actually is behind the scenes is a Rust macro. Luckily, I didn't have to write this. Someone else wrote this. There's a library called YEW. And yeah, it's a front-end web framework in Rust, which is really cool and also kind of hard to use, but really cool. As for the backend, we're using Rocket, which is it's kind of comparable to Express.js, I guess, but in Rust. So you have another macro here that kind of defines the endpoints, and yeah, that's kind of a top-down overview of how it works. If anyone wants to try this out for themselves, I have a Git repo here. Maybe I can link to it if you join the Slack. But literally, it's as easy as cloning the repo and running the Docker Compose file. Yeah, so I think that's it for the demo. Are there any questions?
There are, in fact, some questions. First question is from Alien Room asking, what projects out there are made in Rust, and what would the main competition be for Rust as a language?
Ooh, okay. So actually, a fairly popular company you guys probably heard of called Discord switched their entire code base from Golang to Rust. And one of the reasons for doing so was they were running into issues with Golang's garbage collector at the scale they were running at. So they rewrote a large portion of their services in Rust just to work at a lower level to manage their memory manually and to get that sweet performance.
Cool. We had another question about the Rust framework that you use, the front end one.
Yeah, it's called Yew.
Is that YEW, as in like the wood?
I think so. I think there's a tree called Yew.
Yeah, it's a type of wood.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Arun. Thank you for your demo of a wonderful Connect 4 application and for losing to me so gracefully. I'm sure that having built it, you only lost to me because you wanted me to feel good about myself. So thank you for that.
Feel free to play the game yourself. It's connect4.busari.xyz. Maybe a link can get dropped in there. You can also play against a impossible AI, which will always win. Or you can also choose a different difficulty as well.
Phenomenal. Cool. Next up, we have Derek, who's going to talk about a serverless Firebase sports tracking application that he built.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about...
Derek, I'm just going to... I don't see your display. I'll need you to share that so we can see it.
Yeah, I'm just going to do that now. Yeah.
That was Mark. Mark is running things behind the scenes. Everyone please clap in their homes for Mark, because he is doing everything and running everything and giving us all this cool stuff. So take it away, Derek.
Yeah, thanks. So this is an app that I've been working on for the last few weeks here. One of the main reasons I wanted to build this, I suppose that as well as using it, is I wanted to learn how to use Firebase from Google. So this app, it's a serverless app, and it's built using the Firebase services. So it ties into the authentication, the database, and the storage section of those. I'll just quickly show the dashboard for that here. So you can see this is the project dashboard for the app, and I've got the authentication. You've got a bunch of sign-in methods that you can choose. And so far I've set up Google, Facebook, and just email and password sign up. I also have the database service set up. And you can see I've got a public document here to store some user image files, which I'll show later. And then I've got a users collection where I store the signed in users data. And then I also set up the storage service, which allowed me to save in some default profile pictures, which I'll show in the app later as well. There's 50 pictures stored in here, which we'll fetch. And I also set up the functions. I just set up one cloud function to delete the user's data if they, delete the authentication record, or delete the user's data whenever they delete their authentication record. So that function triggers whenever a user is deleted from the authentication page, and it deletes all their data from the database service. So those functions can tie the services together as you go. So we'll jump in the app here, and we'll do a quick demo of how everything works. So you got your Google, Facebook, and email sign-in. I'll use the email one now. I do the Google and Facebook are working as well. So I use my Outlook email to sign into. And it'll prompt, if you don't have an account here, it'll prompt you to create a username and a password. I've already done that stage, so I'll put in my password. And then I'll sign you into the app here. So the purpose of this app is whenever I play a sport called Ultimate Frisbee, and a lot of times we want to track how people are doing on the field, and it's done with pen and paper and a clipboard a lot, and it can become a bit cumbersome. So I thought I would try and get something together that would make it a bit easier. It's made to be used on mobiles because that's what people have at the fields. And I've got a mobile screen sort of set up here to show how it would look whenever it's on mobile. So you can add your team, and you can list the players in the team here. You can, once you've completed a game, it'll save it to the database and they'll get pulled in here. And I've sort of started to get some statistics ready for whenever the games are finished. And they're all calculated on the client since it's serverless. It's only the data stored in the Firebase database. So whenever you want to create a new game, you'll start a new game. You'll choose which teams you want to track. I'll do 3 by 3 because it's a bit easier to demo. Finish setup, and it'll create a new game. This game is just stored locally right now. And then whenever I click finish and save, later it'll send it to the Firebase database. So you choose which players are going to play, start point, and then this is just tracking the statistics during the game. You see that the time has started. I used a library called easytimer.js to track the time. Quite a good little library, lightweight. Can link to that later. You can take timeouts during the game, and that timer will run separately and save that data as well. And every time you create an action, it'll update the state to sort of reflect the state of the game at the minute. And then only certain actions can be done depending on the state on the field. So the last person to touch the frisbee, or the disc we call it, can't drop it because they'll be throwing it to somebody else, but they can throw it away and cause a turnover, which will flip the possession, and then you're taking statistics for the opposition team. And then you can record a point, and everything updates in real time. And this is a front end built in React. And then if we finish and save, you can confirm that it'll save it to the database. I'm using a library called React Toastify to get these toast messages here. It's quite easy to set up as well. Really handy. And I also set up an undo function using that toast, which if the user deletes a game, it'll give them 5 seconds to undo, kind of like you see in the Google Drive products and things like that. So I'll show a bit of the mobile look, so you can see the responsiveness of the site. And I'll show some of the real-time syncing that the Firebase Storage service sets up. So I'll log into the same account in this browser, which is an incognito browser, so it won't be sharing the same local data. It'll be pulling in data from the database. Oh. So the profile pictures that we were looked at in storage earlier are these profile pictures here. Those are stored on Firebase, and the links are pulled from the database and inserted into the HTML. And you can see if we go to edit profile on this browser, and we change our profile picture, the real-time database kicks in, and the change that was made on the phone will then update real-time in the browser. You can see the profile picture is changed over here, and it'll change if you change the username on the other browser as well. You can see it pops up in either browser. Yeah, so that's it for the demo, I think. See if there's any questions going on.
There are indeed a few questions. The first question is, how do you like working with Firebase? Would you use it again for a similar style of application?
Yeah, I believe, and that question's from Mark. I think I recommended it to Mark in Slack a few weeks ago, and I'm just a hobbyist developer. I'm not a developer by trade. So for me, it was really easy to jump in and get started. And I think if I can do it, then it would be even easier for somebody that works with JavaScript every day. I thought it was a great service for a serverless application like this. I really enjoyed working with it, yeah.
Do you have any plans to expand the application to track anything else related to Ultimate Frisbee? I know that there are like leagues that assign money values to people based on your stats. Do you have any plans to kind of expand into that realm?
I don't at the minute. As I said, I just started working on this a few weeks ago, and I actually just rushed to get it deployed. It's on my GitHub pages here about an hour before we started the talk here. So I'm really early stages right now, and once I finish this and I see if people want to use it, then maybe I'll look into maybe expand into other things.
Cool. Well, given that you're kind of in the very early stages of this, I think we know the answer to this, but Alien Room has asked, what backend and front end do you use, and what kind of deploy technologies do you test this app for, like cybersecurity attacks? Have you thought about people who might be compromising your precious statistics?
I think that because it's a serverless application, I don't have to worry about that too much. The Firebase Google handles all the security on that end. There is security rules that you can set up in the Firebase, and I've set those up so that only signed-in users can read from the database, and only the user signed in can read their data at that time. But I haven't looked into any cybersecurity attacks or anything like that yet.
Cool. I think that's it. So thank you for your presentation. This was Derek's first talk at Exchange.js. Hopefully not his last talk. So congratulations on your first talk.
Thank you.
Next up, we have David coming up with a talk about meta JavaScript, which if you've heard David talk about it, is really interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing how you compress that whole topic down into 7 minutes. So
yes. Okay. I want to share with you this project, Meta JavaScript. It's a fork from another project called Meta Processing. The idea is that this is a programming language for beginners. So whenever you open Meta Processing, this is the interface. Here you have this button to run the code that you have. You have here 3 tabs. In this tab, you have the code, like the main code. This tab is to see like all the events in the mouse, and this tab is to see all the events in the keyword. Right now, I guess you are watching the interface in Spanish. Actually, I am not in Canada. I am in Colombia. So I am streaming from Bogota. So I developed this software for those who their first programming language, for their native language is not English. So it will be nice to have a programming language in your native language. So this one right now is in Spanish, but the idea is that you can see the code in any other languages. So you have this menu here. You select here this option, so you can see the code in Spanish, in French, in Hindi, in Chinese, in Italian, in Japanese, in Portuguese, and English. So I will shift to English, so you can see now all the code translated automatically in English. I can see the code in Hindi, the tabs and all the information that you can see here in this bar that give you information for every instruction. All the interface of the program changed to the language that you select. This one is Chinese. So I will go back to English to make it more easy. So the idea is that you have here like a few lines. There are green and red button. With the green button, you can add a new line. It will be down the current line. So if I press here, then here is the new line. If I want to delete them, I go to the button that is red, and then I press, and it removes the line. I want to show you few examples. This one is an animation. So if I press here, it open my browser and run the animation. So all this animation that is like the sunrise. This is the sea, and you can see the sun coming up. everything is made only with these 7 lines. Okay. I will show you other examples that I have here. One can be the piano, this piano. So can you see that now in the principal code there is nothing? You can see that everything is in the keyword. So this code launch few instructions according the key that I press. So if I press the letter A, then I will play this note and I will change the background green and I will show the name of that note. So the same with all the other keys. So I will run the code. If you can see, the code is running in my browser. So I press A. Okay, so now I would like to show you why I am showing you this, because the programming language I used to create this program is processing, but the magic is that all this code that you can see here is translated automatically whenever I press this run button to JavaScript. So this software is generating this HTML file. So all this code in JavaScript is generated, is like all this code is translated to JavaScript.
David?
So yes?
Can I just interrupt? Chad is just saying they're having trouble seeing your font. Could you make it any bigger when you're in the editor?
In this editor, it's not possible. I can't, as it's an early stage, still I don't have the option to increase the size. Let me check something. Let me check something. If instead of sharing the screen, I will share only the app. Can you see better now? No? Is better? Or is better? Okay. So now you can see here all the code, yes. And if I press, I don't have to type. This is not the typical text editor. So every line you are writing as selecting options. So I will open a new project and I will show you how it works. Oh my God, 45 seconds. Okay. So I have this new code. These are the instructions that I can use. I will show a text, for instance. So hello, and the position 50, apply, and then run this code, and it's generating in JavaScript. But you can see this. Sorry, you are watching only my. Anyway, I just invite you to check the GitHub project and download. And my time is over. So thank you so much. Yes, I don't know if someone have questions.
There are, in fact, questions.
Okay.
Most of the people seem to kind of be wondering, like, how does this compare to existing processing to JavaScript converters? Is it mostly around kind of the language aspect of it?
No, actually, this is like a the main project is translate processing language into 8 different languages from the world.
A dialect.
Okay,
yeah.
because it's a dialogue. Yes, so that was the main idea, that people can write code in their native language. Okay, Then I said, okay, it will be nice also if you can create websites in your own native language. So then I make this fork and translate like all the ID to run code in the web browser. And now it's giving support to Arduinos, so I can program Arduinos and I can program ISPs, these IoT devices. But in the version of meta processing, now I am in the process to make it work in JavaScript, and I have few experiments that they are working. So very soon I will publish a version that will give this option to connect your website with Arduino or with a ESP device.
Cool.
Yes.
It seems like this is kind of resonating with a few people here. Alien Room is asking, what is the GitHub for meta processing? I believe you also wrote a book on this concept as well, if I remember from our talk previously.
Yes.
But if you want to post maybe your GitHub in the YouTube, and maybe Mark, through some magic, you could kind of maybe throw it up here if people are watching this later and want to check it out. I'd say that the book and the GitHub is probably a great place to start.
Actually, I have two books, one for meta JavaScript and another for meta processing. Meta processing is more advanced, have more options, and meta JavaScript is like a behind. Whatever I do in the other, then I fork to meta JavaScript. So if you want to see what is more beyond, then you can check. This is the meta JavaScript, and meta processing is this one.
Cool.
If you can. In the GitHub channel there are the books. When you click in release, you can download the books. So this is meta processing.
Cool.
The books are in English and in Spanish, so there is not any problem for you. You can read it.
I can't read Spanish, but luckily sometimes I can read English. So
okay, great.
I think we might throw up the link, we might not, but check out Meta JavaScript. David's done some really cool stuff. Yeah, that's the second one down there.
Yes.
And check out the books. They're a great source of information as well, going into like the reasons why David did all this. Thank you again, David, for joining us.
No, to you to give me the opportunity to share with all you this.
Of course.
Yes.
Thanks, David. I think that was our last speaker. We just have a little bit of news that we will get to just over here before we kind of close out for the evening. The first is that the Dev Edmonton Society, which is kind of the group that sort of supports all the different meetups around Edmonton and reaching as far as Columbia, apparently. We are now doing kind of monthly meetings to just try and get a cadence to try and help Dev Edmonton better support the various different meetups, including Exchange.js. So if that is something that you are interested in, check out the channel #dev-edmonton-society on Slack for the agenda and details. And unfortunately, we had our last meeting only a couple days ago, but because of the schedule that we picked, our next meeting is actually next week on Wednesday at 8 p.m. I don't believe the agenda is up for that yet, but it will be up pretty soon. As well, we are going to be setting up a mailing list to keep people better informed about the activities of the society. If that is something that you want to get more involved with, there will be board elections as well at the January AGM. Membership in the Dev Edmonton Society, I believe, is only $20, and all of that goes back to supporting the meetups in the local dev community. In terms of news, there is a COVID tracer application that I believe is out of Ontario, and there are a few people interested in doing kind of a privacy review of it, because in this contact tracing sort of world that we're living in now, there's a big concern about what people are seeing and what they're not seeing, and like what these applications are using, and if they're doing it in an ethical manner. So if that is something you're interested in, I have posted a link over there. And if not, you can check it out. If you don't want to type that link out, you can go to #dev-talk. And the link is also in the YouTube comments. We also here at Dev Edmonton, all of our meetups are brought to you by sponsors. And I promise I randomize these every single time. It just happened to be that the company that I work for is first. So one of our sponsors is PunchCard. We do software consulting, custom app development, mobile app development, lots of custom software. Also sponsoring us is Jobber, which you probably have heard of, but they do business applications for small businesses, helping people turn a couple of trucks and a couple of people into a business and to grow it with all sorts of different AR and kind of payable type stuff in there. And lastly, up on our docket is Iron Sights, which is a startup working out of, I believe, the Mercer building, doing really interesting fleet management and other details in the oil patch. So kind of focusing on heavy machinery and like industry. As always, we are sponsored in part by Startup Edmonton. If we were able to be in the same room as everybody, we would all be in the wonderful Startup Edmonton space. I can't wait to get back there. But they have been instrumental in setting up all of these meetups for us, and we would be remiss in not including them on every single slide. You can always sponsor us today as well. We are always looking for new sponsors. We're coming up to about having a new year, and that means that we'll need people to either re-up or to sponsor. It's very reasonable. We have a slide deck full of all the reasons why you should sponsor with us, as well as all of your possible options, including one of the ones that gets you a shout out, like PunchCard, Jobber, and Iron Sights. If you're interested in that, you can email us at sponsors@exchange.js.com. Our next meetup, we normally don't have meetups in July and August just because there is the attendance really suffers in the summer months. But given that we're all home and not many people are taking vacations, we will likely actually have an August meetup, although because people aren't usually thinking demos at this point in time, it might just be a social meetup. So we'll figure out something that we're going to have, and it'll be announced in the Dev Edmonton Slack. And lastly, we usually go down to a bar for beers. I trust all of you have beers. If you don't, that is your problem, not mine. But we do have a meet link that we will be meeting in. We'll be posting that in the Dev Edmonton Slack, as well as the YouTube comments. And if you're really quick, you can copy it down from this wonderful slide that you see next to me. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you to our all of our speakers, whether they be first-time speakers or veteran speakers. We've had a great mix of both. There's been some really interesting things presented here, and I hope they've sparked some imagination from a really complicated JavaScript multi-language processing application, which is super cool, and you should check it out, all the way down to the reasons why you should start a personal project. I think we've done some really great work and had some really good stuff here. So thank you all for joining us on this, and I will see you in August. And Mark, if you're listening, that's your cue to get me off the screen.
Bye, Ian. Thank you very much, and thanks for being such an awesome job hosting again, Ian.
Yeah, no problem.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.